Well, good morning, everybody. And it is Friday morning, and this morning, early in the morning, was our very first time that we were supposed to get frost this fall, which is really unusual in Wyoming. Usually we have frost and snow in September, but we had a beautiful September. Now I am trying out Friday mornings until we go to Arizona. And so we'll see who pops in. Or maybe nobody will pop in. Who knows? But what happens when you're going to have a frost? What are you going to do? What are you going to, do your vegetables just get ruined? What are you going to do that day? Oh, Janet is here. Good morning. She has Homestead Where You Are. And that is just like a mantra to me. Where you are, you have a homestead. And what you do with that. So good morning, Janet. So it got to 29 degrees this morning. That was the coldest. And it was pretty early this morning. 5:30, 6 o'clock, it got to 29. But we had a lot of rain. And that can be really a benefit when you're going to have frost. That's why, like in Florida, if they're going to have a freeze, some of the farmers will spray their fields. Some of them use fans so the air moves around. But what do you do in Wyoming when you're going to have a freeze? And you still have lots of things growing. Like I have the community garden. I have the gardens at our house. I don't have enough sheets to cover everything. It's just not possible. So we decided. Oh, and Ann is here. Good morning, Andale. How are ya? So we decided that we weren't going to cover things. We were going to pick. And so we went over and I picked all of the squashes and pumpkins that we had left. Some of them were not ripe yet, but they'll just sit and they will ripen. The green pumpkins will turn orange. And you can eat immature pumpkins. It's not like you can't. So we picked those. Joe picked 2 of the pear trees. We have 5 pear trees. The other ones weren't ready. You know when a pear is ready when you twist it and it just pops right off. But it just wasn't ready. And so I said, well, we'll pick those 2 trees, the 2 trees that are ready. Here is one of our pears from there. A pear is not ripe on the tree. It doesn't ripen on the tree. You have to pick it, and then you just sit on your counter or in boxes, and they ripen. And, Carol is here. Good morning, Carol. How are you? And so we have 3 bags of pears, but we have 3 trees we did not pick. So what is going to happen since it got to 29 degrees? Luckily for us, I was out this morning, and there was no frost at all anywhere, but I think it was because of the rain. When rain hits, sits on plants, there is basically a chemical reaction. There is a heat release. And I can't tell you right offhand how many BTUs it is, but it's way more than what you would think. And so far, and the sun is up, so I'm going to watch after my live again. I'll walk around again. But it looks like everything is okay. Now, we did pick tomatoes. This is called a strawberry tomato. Actually, a German strawberry tomato. Because it's in the shape of a strawberry. They're really good. They're really meaty. And then some of them aren't ripe at all. They're hard. They're green. They're just barely starting to turn. But on the counter, they will just turn red, and we'll be able to use them. If some of them are still green, I'm going to take those green ones to Arizona. This one is more in between. It's not quite. This is a pink tomato. So it's not going to turn red. It's going to turn pink. But what are you going to do? Oh, Penny is here. Good morning, Penny. Penny is in Oregon. So I hope you're having a beautiful morning. My daughter lives in Oregon. She lives in Portland, her and her husband. We have been out there many times. I do like Oregon. It's just a beautiful state. Though Portland is very big, but I still love it. And there's a lot of things to do. If you ever go to Portland, they have a rose garden with literally thousands of different roses. It's spectacular. They have a Japanese garden that's very beautiful. And there was another garden we went through. I can't remember. They got a tram. And the very best yarn place I ever was in my whole life was a yarn place that had just room after room after room of different kinds of yarn. It was spectacular. But I have a problem. And maybe you guys can tell me an answer. Now, I grew lots and lots of squashes and pumpkins, right? I grew ones that people gave me the seeds. I got really big ones that Ryan Cook sent me from West Virginia. And then I had ones that were just old seeds. But I have a pumpkin squash, probably a squash, not a pumpkin, that I don't have any idea what it is. I went through garden catalogs. I went through the internet. I put in every conceivable description of it, and I couldn't find what it is. So maybe one of you guys knows what it is. It weighs about 15 pounds. It's in the shape of a mushroom. The stem is on the fat part. And then it looks like a mushroom. Usually when you have weird shaped squashes, the stem is on the narrow side. So, but why is this on the fat side? And I mean, it weighs about 15 pounds. It's heavy. It's dark green. I don't have any idea what it is. I sent pictures to different people I know that grow a lot of squash and pumpkins. So far, nobody knows what it is. I don't know if it was a cross between something, because squashes will cross-pollinate. Tina Ladybug, how are you? It is huge. Penny says that, yes, I have been to both of those gardens many times. Yes. But if you guys have any idea of what kind of pumpkin that is, or squash, it's probably squash, because most pumpkins are not weird shaped. I mean, they can be bumpy, they can be very ridged, but not usually unusual shape. Now, my big field pumpkin, I would have brought it in to show you and lift it up, but it's 30 pounds, and it's big. And it didn't weigh as much as I thought, though. I thought maybe it weighed about 40 pounds. So that was kind of crazy. We picked all of our apples, and I had made up, I sliced a bunch of them up and put cinnamon sugar and put them in freezer bags so that when I want to put them, make a pie or a cobbler or whatever, they're just there. And then I have a bunch more. The ones that were a little more imperfect, the really big, large, perfect ones, I wrapped in paper, put them in a box. They're in the garage because I'm taking them to Arizona. These ones, I'm going to make pie out of them. Joe loves it. He loves apple pie. And we had a cake this week, and so they've been sitting on the counter, so I'm going to do those up today, and just totally excited. This is a Northern Spy apple. No, this is a Northern Lights apple. It's not very red, where usually they are pretty much red, but it did come off of that tree, and so it's a good tasting apple, not very old. A lot of my apples that I graft are very old. Like I have some from 1500s that they have just, you buy the scion and you graft it onto a rootstock. So, but me, I love apple trees. But it has been an interesting morning. When I got up, I was worried because first frost, are all my flowers going to be dead? I have a lot of flowers that the pots got moved right next to the house. That always will help, so that they don't, get frosted and freeze. Oh, Rebecca's here. Good morning, young lady. How are ya? If you haven't been to Rebecca's website, she is, she makes hats like mad, And Joe and I have a couple hats from her. They're just fabulous, so warm. And in fact, there's other people in in the chat that have great websites or YouTube channels. Ann Dale. Now, Ann Dale has Dale Homestead. We have been peas in a pod for a long, long time, friends for a long, long time. And she is now the newest co-host of Around the Hay Bale. And so that is a really interesting. I've been on Around the Hay Bale two different seasons. They have interviewed me and we've talked about gardens. And man, you can just learn so many things from those episodes. So check out Around the Hay Bale. Or I guess it's just Round the Hay Bale, not around. But Ann is the latest, newest member, co-host. And so I'm just so proud of her. And she's going to do such a great job. And, you know, I'm totally excited about this season with Round the Hay Bale. So awesome. And everybody's saying hi to everybody. So that's always so much fun. So I have big pots of tomatoes, tomato plants, flowers. Carol's asking, could it be a Boston Marrow? No. I researched all the different shapes of Boston Marrows because Boston Marrow, in fact, I grew some Boston Marrows. And the Boston Marrows I grow are orange. And they are really fat in the center. And they can be thinner on the ends, kind of like a Hubbard. And I searched Hubbards in case there were some kind of weird Hubbards that it could be. But the thing is that none of those have the fat stem, the stem on the fat end. And so that's where it's perplexing to me. Almost all weird squashes, the narrow end is where the stem comes out. And so I'm sure somebody's got to grown them before. If not, my only other thing that I can think of is that it's cross-pollinated. And it's one type of pumpkin or squash and another type of squash that's cross-pollinated to make a weird mushroom-shaped squash. So if you came in afterwards, this is what it looks like. See, it looks like a mushroom. But the weird thing is the stem is on the fat end. And so we'll see if I get any emails back and people go, I know what that is. But like Carol said, I looked at every Boston Marrow I could find. I looked at Hubbards. I Googled unusual, weird squashes, large green squashes. I described it in it. I couldn't find it. So it is perplexing to me. But after your first frost, what are you going to do? Has it killed everything? Did you cover up enough stuff that, because next week we are in the 70s again. Pattison. I will look that up, Carol. And it kind of reminds me, have you ever grown turban squashes? They're fat, but then they're just really squatty on the bottom part of them. So maybe it is a cross with that. Anne says, it's really cool though. It is funky and it weighs 15 pounds. So I am going to cut it up before we go. And because I want to save the seeds. So if you guys want any of the seeds of the weird pumpkin squash pumpkin, let me know and I'll send them to you. Because I'm sure it's packed with seeds. But with the weight of it, I would guess the flesh has to be really thick in there. And you know, like when you grow a butternut squash, and there's only that little tiny cavity that has the seeds in it, and the rest is flesh that you eat. And so with the weight, I would guess it's something like that. But in that big part, that's got to be where the seeds are. Rebecca says that her favorite squash is egg corn. I do not know what that one is. So, will you email me a picture? I'll Google it too. I'm always looking for weird squashes and different squashes. I love squash. I love it simply just when you bake it and you put some butter and brown sugar in it. I love it that way. I love it when it's stuffed. I loved it. I just love it. And so that's why I grow lots of it. If you saw earlier videos, I had squashes going over trellises, that they were coming over the fences. They were just everywhere. And so my kitchen is, oh, it's an acorn. Oh, egg corn. Sorry, I didn't catch it. I like acorn squash too. It is totally good. I thought there was some kind of new squash. She was messing with me. That's awesome. But what are you going to do? Say you covered them and you have tons of green tomatoes. One year, we were going to have a really early frost in September. I mean, hard frost, not just 29 degrees, freezing frost, snow frost. And so I picked all my tomatoes. And I literally had, you know those tubs that you have? They're probably about this thick, and they must be 3.5 feet long. I had 5 of those. And I just put every single green tomato in there. I just stacked them up in the living room because I didn't know what I was going to do with all those tomatoes because they were all green. And I mean, we had red ones, but I didn't put those in the tubs. And then every single day, they all had lids on them. Every single day I would go through and some of them would start to ripen. And then I would do stuff with them. So if you have it, you have a lot of green ones. What happens is when it has the lid on it, the ethylene gas that all fruits and vegetables have makes them ripen faster. And so if you could put them in a brown paper bag, it would work too. But if you have totes, especially the narrow ones, so they're not stacked on top of each other because you don't want them to get squished, they will just ripen really fast for you. Sometimes when you have a frost and it's not too bad of a frost, though it's wrinkled the leaves on some things, you can just take your little clippers and clip off those parts that got way too cold. And then you can, especially if the weather's going to be nice again, just let it grow. Give it a good soak, and it will just revive itself. I have seen that lots of times on peppers, on tomatoes, when those outside leaves have just really got all brown and not good. But then you just clip that off and it stimulates it because you clipped it. And you have, you're going to have 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of good weather. You might as well have more vegetables. So, but like where all my pumpkins and squashes were, the area is just way too large. Though I did leave, I left all the sweet potatoes because I haven't dug those yet. I left a bunch of peppers because I had so many pepper plants over there that I'd gotten for free in actually the middle of July. And the plants are just beautiful. Just a few peppers on them. And I just thought, I'm just going to take a chance. I'm here for 2 more weeks. And I told the other gardeners that I would leave them in the ground if they wanted to, because our water will get turned off, but we can still go into the garden. I said, you might have to hand water them. If it's going to frost, you might have to cover them when I'm gone. And there was a whole bunch of them that wanted them. So I just thought, why pull up the plants and waste that? With the sweet potatoes, I figured, well, if it frosts too hard for the sweet potatoes, sweet potatoes are underground. I'll just go over and dig them all up anyway. So I will see how the sweet potatoes are. In Wyoming, sweet potatoes are difficult to grow. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're difficult to get big sweet potatoes. And so I started those slips when I was in Arizona, and I brought them. And then I planted them in the garden. And so they have been living much longer than they would if I started when I got back here. So hopefully, and they came from really huge sweet potatoes. So I'm hoping I have some good sized sweet potatoes, and I will just take them to Arizona with me. We got some beautiful onions this year, but I had already pulled those from before the frost, so that was okay. It probably was too cold for my zucchini. I haven't looked at that yet, though I have big zucchinis in the kitchen, so it's okay either way. But sometimes just that covering of the sheet, garden cloth, blankets, anything like that. Some people just put cardboard boxes over top of their plants, and that is enough to protect them so that you don't have to worry. And if you have flattened boxes that when it becomes that time of the year, you can just make into boxes and set over top of them, it's perfect. And it'll actually even protect. A cardboard box will help it protect even if it has some snow, just because it's thick, and I think it just gives it that thermal mass more than sometimes that a sheet can do. Though it's amazing what sheets and garden cloth can do to stop a frost. I didn't go into my greenhouse this morning. Now, in the greenhouse, I don't have vegetables growing. I just have very tender plants growing. I do have some grasses growing in there too. But I have coleuses and just beautiful plants that they can't, the cold is just too hard on them. Anne says she hasn't grown large onions yet, still trying. And do you grow them from the sets or the seeds, or do you buy live plants? Because I have found, not that you can't grow fairly large ones from sets. Seeds, we don't have a long enough season unless I start them in the wintertime. Then I can do it. But I buy from Dixondale Farms out of Texas, and they have short day onions, midday onions, long day onions. So in Wyoming, we buy long day onions. In Arizona, I've already ordered them so that they'll get delivered in November for me down in Arizona. I grow short day onions. So Anne's buying sets right now. If you buy live plants, I think you will be pleasantly surprised, because you can really get some large plants. And I would think that you guys are short day onions because of where you live. It divides the country. Like my top region of the north grows long day onions because our days are very long and the sun is very intense in the summertime. But in Arizona, I grow them in the wintertime, and I buy the short day onions. And they still make very large onions, but they're grown to match the sun and the temperatures and the daylight hours, which really is the nighttime hours. It's funny on packages. They say daylight hours, that this seed needs this much daylight hours. But it's actually opposite. But they figure that people don't understand that, so they say daylight, but it's really based on how many nighttime hours there are. Rebecca is a 6A, so I would guess you are a mid onion. And so you can go to Dixondale Farms, and they have a map of the United States on how it divides the United States. And because they recommend certain onions for you. And they have a big selection of, and you can buy leeks from them, and scallions, and you can just buy different things from them. But the information that they have, and they send you a booklet when you order, and the more you order, the cheaper it gets. So us master gardeners, we always put our orders together. So like if you were only buying one bunch, that would have about 70 onions in it. it would cost you about $16. But we buy so many, each of those same bunches only costs us $4. But it's just one of those benefits that the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. And like anybody in the South, they can plant onions now. Well, I'm going to plant mine in November. That's when their winter season, the winter season of where I am in Arizona, when they'll send them to me. And I brought those onions back that we didn't use, and we had them all summer long. And then just lately, I dehydrated them because I had so many left. And I dehydrated about 15 pounds of onions, and it made just under 2 quarts of what I dehydrated. And that all depends on how large or small you chop them. But for what I did, that's right, Dixon Dale Farms, and it's just like Dale Homestead. See, you should write them an email and do something, some kind of video with that, and they might think that's great fun and send you free ones. Yeah, but I'm excited because I love the whole process of growing onions. And another thing I do with onions, I go to the store, those skinny green onions that you buy at the store, and sometimes when they're in season, they're two packages for $1. I cut them off, and I use that green part in cooking or salads or whatever, and then I plant those. And they will get so big, like a leek does. And man, they're fabulous. And if you cut them and slice them in half and roast them on the grill, those are so good. It is just like amazing, the taste of them. But I like grilled vegetables anyway. From broccoli to beets to any kind of vegetables. You just slice them. Cabbage is really good grilled. Brussels sprouts, any kind of vegetable, you grill them with a little butter on there, some spices. Oh my gosh, so incredibly good. And it's good for you. And even if they cook too long, they get kind of crispy. They're more like a vegetable chip, and I still love them. Oh, Anne says she really should. You should. That would be a fun video. Play on words, and yeah, it'd be great fun. But today, officially, we have 14 days before we leave. And my daughter-in-law sent me a message this morning, and she says, when you get down here, because they live on the mountain above Boulder, Colorado, and she says, do you want to go to the opera with me? And I said, yes. And then she writes back and she goes, what about Joe? Does Joe want to go to the opera? And so I said, I don't think so, but I'll go ask him. So I went out and asked him, Joe, do you want to go to the opera with me and Jamie? And he looks at me and he cocks his head and he goes, no. And in fact, a little bit more explicit, no. And I said, okay, because Jamie said Jason won't go unless you go. So it's just us girls. We're just going. And so it should be great fun. So she sent me a thing back. She bought the tickets. And we are going to, let me find the name of the opera we're going to. Amadeus Live. And I saw the movie and I liked it. And so it should be great fun. I'm totally excited. And I said, what do I have to wear? Because we will be packed, with all of our stuff for Arizona. So then I have to put it in my overnight bag. And so it's like, do I put a long dress in my overnight bag? Because I only have so much room. But I have some really beautiful slacks and a top that goes with it. And I think that's what I'll just stuff in there. But it was just so funny. Joe and opera, not his cup of tea, which is totally okay, He'd rather listen to some 50s, 60s, 70s music or some country music, but that's just the way it is. Penny wants to know, do any of you grow horseradish root, ginger root, wasabi root, or turmeric root? If so, do you have any words of wisdom for me? Well, I have grown horseradish in my garden for probably the last 10 years. And horseradish can grow in our weather. I have grown ginger root and turmeric root in pots, but it can't survive my winter. And on the ginger and the turmeric root, what I did was I mixed potting soil, perlite, vermiculite, and some worm castings. And then I laid my root sideways, of course. And at first, on the soil, I only had it half buried because I wanted to watch it start to send its roots down and its plant up. And so then when it started to grow, then I did repot it carefully. And honestly, I'll tell you how I did it. It's really pretty easy. So I have my pot. So let's say it's this big. I only have about half full of my potting mixture. Because the thing I always think about is the roots. Not that I couldn't have just pulled them up, which you can, and then put them in a bigger pot. And I have started them in flats before doing that. But the easiest way is to have it in your pot half full. When it starts to do its shoots up, then I cover it with more soil. Don't overwater them. I've bought ginger just from the store, and I bought turmeric just from the store, and I've got it to grow. I have ordered online, and it works, but it doesn't last our winter. And it's not a plant that I'm willing to take back and forth to Arizona, so I always give it away. But it's fun growing it, and they're beautiful plants. And the turmeric is very much, it always reminds me of elephant ears, and it's a beautiful plant. But that's, I don't fertilize it other than that because I think the worm castings have enough nutrients for the ginger root and the turmeric. I've never grown wasabi. I don't know if anybody else has done that. But that would be interesting because my one daughter loves wasabi. And so that would be interesting. But the horseradish is so hardy here. And then when I usually let mine flower just because I have a lot of it and I'm never going to use that much horseradish. But Penny, if you send me your email, your physical address, I will dig up some horseradish and mail it to you if you'd like it. This is my email address. So if you send that to me, and give me your address, I'll dig it up before we go and I'll send it to you. It's very powerful. You should know the horseradish that we have. Because sometimes you grow it and it's not so powerful, but this is very powerful. And actually, I have found that depending on how the summer is, it can be hotter, spicier than other summers. And I think it's just the weather that can do that. But I have horseradish in 3 different places because I love the plant. The leaves are beautiful, the flowers, the bees like, and so I just love it. So, and Anne says, I've never been to an opera. I need to do that at least one. I think everybody should go to an opera at least once. Do pick a good opera though, because some of them are just like, oh my gosh. I'd like to be painting my ceiling instead. But Amadeus will be a fabulous one. And so, I don't know if any of you guys also have grown those to give some advice. Just type it in the chat. That would be awesome. But I'm past my 30 minutes, and I like to be 30 minutes because people are busy. There are other lives always, and I just appreciate you guys coming in. But I have to say, our first frost, even though we were at 29 degrees, because of the rain, so far no damage. But sometimes you don't see the damage until after the sun has been up for a while. And so I'm going to walk around my garden when I get off this live, and I will find out just how the garden fares. I have a short video coming up today of me weighing different pumpkins and squashes, just for fun. And if any of you want those seeds from this crazy mushroom-shaped squash, send me an email, and I will send it out to you. And I'll put that up one more time while I'm saying goodbye. And I hope you guys have a great weekend. 14 days before we leave, and I'm totally excited about gardening in Arizona. So, Ann says, oh my gosh, I'll need advice on a good opera. Thanks for the veggie advice too. Awesome. And Ann, send a message, email to Dixondale and just see what they'll do for you. But they have great onions. I have bought from them probably for, oh wow, I don't know, 15 years or more. And you get the live plants, and we have got great success. Hey, WD, how are you? I just watched your video on the mountain. It was fabulous. But I'm just leaving. But I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you next time, and it was great talking to you guys. Have a good day. Bye, everybody.